Yeah. So here yesterday I was saying vCore model and DTU model. Okay. So as I said, a vCore model gives the ability to choose computation power, that was CPU, and as well as storage individually. But whereas DTU doesn't give that flexibility, because it combines the storage and as well as the computation as a single unit, that is DTU. So we'll see a couple of options over here. Granular control needed over vCPU counts. As I was saying, if you need a control over CPU counts and all, if it is no, then expected over 100 IPS. Okay, IOPS, yes. Higher cost allowable. If you have any higher cost and more than 100 input output operations and all, then you'll go for the vCore model. Okay, and if you are less than 100, then go for the DTU model. And if you don't have much budget also, even though if you're using more than 100, then you will go for the DTU model. And apart from that again, so how do we calculate DTUs and how do we take the standard premium tier? So these are all we'll use column store index, yes, then go for the premium tier. If it is no, then again you check in memory OLTP you need it or not, and desired backup retention we need or not, and if it is less than 7 and greater than 7, what do we need to take? Okay, and expected CPU usage, what we take. So these are all more critical part, and whatever the model you want to choose, because I was saying it has like business critical tier, premium tier based on the cost, right? And basic tier, standard tier. Okay, in the DTU model. So these are all just to go through this whenever you get the time. So this gives a good high level idea. So you don't need to kind of mug it up and remember it, but it just gives good understanding on the various things. Okay, and this MS SQL tips, usually it's a good platform, and this direct quality written, and some of the articles in this written by one of my ex-colleague Ron. So he also writes a good blogs in this website. Okay, you can go through that. Okay, so let's come to SQL. So today we'll explore a couple of SQL things. How do we create a SQL? So which is very straightforward, but just to try to see what are the if some of the important options are available with respect to exam and whenever you work on the Azure SQL. All right. So then we will try to load the data into Azure SQL, and how do we connect from your SSMS to Azure SQL, that we will see that. And tomorrow what we'll see, tomorrow we'll try to extend that. Otherwise tomorrow I have like around set of questions, and we will discuss each and every question in detail. Okay, and also we have a data flow. I will check if you have time tomorrow, then I will work on that data flow also. We'll take one class where I'll explain each and every component of the data flow, and we'll take one some of the standard example, then we will work on that. All right. After this ADF, then we will jump into Azure Synapse. Okay, then Azure Synapse, then Databricks will continue. So each and every point, so whenever we go from one tool to another tool, again we will be try to use that into data factory wherever it is applicable again. So we'll continue to do that. So we have Azure SQL over here direct. So any one of you started trying that or not? Any simple options at least? Are you getting the enough time to practice? Otherwise it will be big overhead and you may not be get interest as well if you just try to postpone that. Just take some time, at least 15-20 minutes, just to try to go over the simple things, whatever we discuss in the class, so that we'll be on the same page. All right. Are you with me?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So in the SQL deployment option, as I was saying, we can select like SQL database, SQL managed instance, SQL virtual machines, right? So we can use any one of the option based on our requirement. So in the SQL database is one of the main thing which we be using usually. So here we have single database, elastic pool, and database server. Okay. So as I mentioned, single database is the one where we create a single database which acquires or which uses all the resources explicitly, exclusively only for that database. All right. And elastic pool, so elastic pool in the sense it creates a pool of resources, okay, a pool of resources which can be shared among its databases. Okay. Then database server in the sense, if you want to create only the server, not the databases and all, then you can go for the database service, right? Then when do we use elastic pool then? Okay. Say suppose you have a you have a data, you have an application, huge application, web application, say, okay, or some data application where you are using around 10 to 15 databases, right? And 10 to 15 databases or 20 databases or 100 databases, you can say, and each database has its own configuration with respect to data it consumes and the processing speed it requires. Okay. And one database may not require uh, say suppose one database has high storage space required and one database has medium, and some data one some there are few databases which we are not using at all, so just they are idle, which does not have any data, right? So in this kind of situation, so you may not be able to create a separate database for each and every database, right? Because the whatever the resources that you allocate, that will be wasted, right? Say suppose this particular database which you're talking about, which does not have any resources, right? And which has very less storage space, right? So for all those things, if you allocate the resources by choosing single database, all the cost associated that will be wasted, right? So that is the reason when you go for elastic pool, so what happens, you already set some resources, say suppose x number of resources aside for all these 20 databases. Okay. So whenever you it requires whatever the amount of computation power or storage capacity it requires, it will pick up from that x resources, right? So in this case you have more control over the resources, and as well as the cost associated also will be drastically reduced when you compare to individual database, right? So it all depends upon the application which you are on working. Okay. Say suppose your application has only one database and you don't see any forecast about adding any databases, then you'll go for the single database. But you have multiple databases and you want to use or you want to manage the resources properly among all the databases, then you'll go for the elastic pool, right? So here if you give up, if you see here, single database is a great fit for modern cloud-borne applications that need a fully managed database with predictable performance. That's what I'm saying, right? So you have predictable performance, saying that like you need this much of computation power, you need this much of storage capacity, then you'll go for this. Okay. Serverless compute, easy management, hyperset scale up to 100 terabytes it uses. And Elastic Pool provides a cost of selection for managing the performance of multiple databases with variable usage pattern. Yes, so it has variable usage. So one database has X resources it needs, one database needs Y, one database needs Z. So it all depends, right? So in this case, you'll go for the Elastic Pool. So of course, database server in general terminology itself, it's a managed group of single databases and Elastic Pool. So on top of database servers, either you can create a single database or you can create a Elastic Pool, right? Uh, so let's go for the single database now. I create a server. So this single database pool is also important related exam point of view as well. Okay.
So Purushottam, here if we select a database server, then it will ask us to select from this list.
Yes, yes, you're right. So you're saying
Uh,
this one, you're saying, right?
no, no, right side.
Yes,
Right side, you are creating a server, right?
right.
If we have already a database server created for
Yes,
our
yes,
record.
yes, yes, yes. It will all allow us to choose. So this one, see, tested the W pool, which I created yesterday actually. This one. So it allows me to do that, to select. So whatever servers are available within your subscription and all, so you can select this. You can select any one of the server. Why it's giving an issue with my keyboard? Right? So just I wanted to show how the server creation works. So that is the reason I had to create a new one. Okay. And see here, want to use SQL Elastic Pool or not. So here I can create an Elastic Pool or I can go for a single database. Now I'll go for a single database. So yes means what happens? A pool will be created here. Okay, pool of resources. So whatever the resources that you take, so that will be pooled. So that will be spread across multiple databases. So I'll say no. Now here the important point, how do we choose the compute and storage power? So just before the session, I was talking about how do we take the model, whatever the service tier we use based on the requirement, right? So here we have two models as I was saying, vCore model, DTU model, right? So vCore model costs bit more as I said, and DTU model cost is less compared to vCore model. But the difference is vCore model gives the advantage for storage and computation individually, whereas the basic doesn't give that option. So if you see here, general purpose I took, okay, which is least option. So it will take, let me check this. Okay. Now here I also mentioned about compute tier. Computer resources are pre-allocated build per hour based on the vCore configured. Computer resources are auto-scaled build per second based on the vCore used. So you have in computer service tier and computer tier. So if you see here, okay, you don't have that option in the DTU model. Okay, so by choosing serverless and provision, we don't have that option in the DTU, but you have in the vCore model. So if you select here, so provision and serverless, see the name itself specifies that. So when you know that there is some kind of storage capacity, sorry, some amount of storage capacity that you are going to use, and some kind of fixed number of CPU you want to use, then you'll go for the provisioned. Okay, and serverless, what happens, you are not sure about how much space is going to use, you're not sure about how much computation power it's going to use. Okay, so it goes on increasing sometimes, it goes on decreasing sometime. So then I'll go for the serverless. It's kind of a auto scale functionality, you know, right? You know that, right? Auto scaling in the sense it the computation power increases based on the storage capacity when it increases, and when the storage capacity decreases, when the storage is decreased, when the data is decreases, then the storage also will decrease. That is called serverless. So when you're not sure about the like storage capacity or CPU capacity which you are going to use, then you'll go for the serverless, otherwise you'll go for the provisioned. And as you are using serverless and you have the flexibility for the auto scaling, so that is the reason it charges based on the second, and whereas provisioned charges based on the hour. Okay, so here, see here, as I was mentioning that, so in the vCore model, here the option to choose the vCore, that is nothing but CPUs, and as well as the data, right? So here I have the flexibility to that. So how many vCores I can use and how much data capacity I can use, all those things can be used. So based on that, so how many vCores I selected? See here, cost per one vCore, it's 8,000 rupees, 8,000 change, and vCore we selected 2. Okay, and also cost per GB 8.29, and max storage capacity it can accommodate 7.8. So it gives all the options. Then it costs 16,380 rupees, bit more in cost, and that too I just selected the general purpose only. I did not go for hyperscale or business critical. Okay, and when you say for basic in the DTU model, when I go for the basic model, see it gives 359 rupees, but you can choose only the size. You don't the max size of the storage. You don't have the control on the computation. It inbuilt in the DTU, right? So that is the basic difference between the vCore and DTU. Okay, and even compute tire also will be used, will be available. Compute tire also will be available only in the vCore model, that you need to remember. So computer tire will be available in the vCore model. Okay, and the vCore model gives the flexibility to select the storage capacity and as well as the CPUs independently, right? And whereas the DTU model will not give that option, as it works as a single unit. All right. So I'll go for the vCore, sorry, DTU model. So I don't want to waste that money. And also, if you see here in the general purpose, you have hardware configuration, database zone redundant. You have that option of database zone redundant. So you have like zone redundant in the sense what? What is used for zone redundant?
Maintaining data in multiple
Multiple locations, right? So it is just a basic model, a general purpose model. So it is preview. If you see hyperscale, that will give the option. Okay, high availability secondary replicas. There you can see the replicas kind of. Okay, it all depends. So we'll go for the DTU basic. So you have locally geo redundant and options I have. So by default, the geo redundant is choosing networking. So I'll say public endpoint. Yeah. Yeah. And here the one more important property in the firewall rules which you need to understand: allow Azure services and resources to access the server. In the sense, so whatever the Azure services we have within your subscription, within your application, so when you choose no, then you will not be able to access this server. Say suppose in the ADF you're trying to use this server. Okay, you're in ADF you're trying to access this. When you say no, then you will not be able to access this server. Okay, say I'll say yes. Yeah. And one more thing, it all depends upon the networks and IPs, right? Within this one, within the Azure. So when you say add current client IP address, what happens? Your IP address from which you are accessing this particular server, from which you are creating this server, that will be added by default to your list of IP addresses, which you can through which you can access the server. Okay, otherwise you need to explicitly add your IP. So usually what happens, so you don't add IP. Okay, so whoever the user is there, okay, they will, who has the access sufficient access, they will add their IPs to access this. Okay, here also I'll try to add here. I'll show you that how do you add that IP. So add current client IP, and the connection I'll say default. Then security. So Azure Defender is a security one, so which is under preview actually. So just ignore that. Yeah. Here, do you need existing data backup or not? Okay, start with a blank database or restored a backup from a selected sample. So I don't have any backup. I don't want to take any backup. So while creating itself, same thing, right? In the database creation also, you'll say backup or you'll say a simple blank database. Same thing. So I'll go for the none. It's a collation and maintenance window when you want to take manage that backups and all. So it's cost about 359 rupees. So once I created in the same for one of the classes, I created a vCore model and I forgot to delete that. Then it gave me around 3000 rupees in 2 days. I took the least configuration. So that is the reason. Make sure you delete whatever you create when you go for the pay as you go model. Any doubts so far in this session or previous sessions? You have any doubts?
So Purushottam, can you please once again explain the provision and serverless?
Yeah, so
Right.
provision and serverless are available in the vCore model. So there are two options are there in the vCore model. So computer, you can choose provision and serverless. Say suppose you want to dedicate some resources, say suppose some resources dedicated to the database, okay, and for which you are sure that the database you are going to use will have that much of storage capacity or computation power, okay, then you'll go for the provision. That means you are already pre-allocate the resources. Say suppose 10 GB is 10 GB, you'll allocate already on that. Okay, so what happens, 10 GB will be allocated per hour basis, it will be charged. All right, but when you say serverless, so what happens, serverless also you will choose something. Okay, you will choose some storage capacity. Okay, say suppose 10 GB, but 10 GB will not be charged. Okay, it will be charged based on the data usage you will be consuming. Okay, say suppose 1 GB you are consuming, only for that 1 GB it will be charged. But the only difference will be in the serverless it will be charged per second, whereas in the provision it will charge per hour. So when you're not sure about the data consumption, data storage, which your the database which you are going to use, then you'll go for the serverless. In one of my application previously, one of the assignment, so we had to migrate some database and which was having on and off storage capacity. Okay, and sometimes it may not have any storage itself. So then we had to go for a serverless to manage the cost efficient. And the serverless and provision is available only in the vCore model, not in the DTU model. That also you need to understand. Got it?
Yes.
Yeah. And one more thing, yeah. So you know this horizontal partitioning and vertical partitioning, which I discussed, right? Sorry, horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. You know horizontal scaling, vertical scaling in general terminology of Azure.
No,
No,
maybe
no.
further.
Okay,
I
so
don't.
see, we have a scaling, right? So what is scaling usually? What is scaling?
To add whenever is required.
Add or minimize the resources
Yes,
based on
yes,
usage.
yes, yes,
Correct.
right. So adding resources or removing the resources, right? So we have in the scaling capacity, irrespective of any Azure resource, I can say. So we have two types of things: horizontal scaling, vertical scaling. Okay, and this is generic to any cloud. Actually, it's not particular to Azure or AWS or GCP. Okay, so when you say horizontal scaling, okay, horizontal scaling, you will add those resources multiple. Say suppose you have a server, okay, say suppose a CPU, I can say, okay, and in a CPU it's performing well, and suddenly you need more power, more computational power, more CPU power. Okay, so when you add one more server, okay, additional server, then it is a horizontal scaling. All right, but when you increase its capacity, okay, instead of adding one more resource, you're increasing the existing resource capacity only. That is called vertical scaling. Getting? So when you add some more resources, it will be horizontal scaling. When you increase or decrease the capacity of the same resource without adding additional, that is a vertical scaling. So this is one of the important thing which you need to learn regarding with respect to cloud terminology or interview terminology or exam point of view also. Vertical and horizontal scaling. Okay, so I think I missed that point in the PowerPoint actually. Sorry for that. Yeah. All right. So here the database is there. Let's go for this server. So within the server, say server admin, and it shows the connection strings, the status, the location, subscription ID, and all. Right. So this is all a database. Right. Now here you can create a database within the server. After creating the server, also within the server, you can create a database, you can create an elastic pool, you can create a dedicated SQL pool. This is nothing but SQL data warehouse. We'll talk about that. So that you can create, or you can import the database, you can reset the password if you have unnecessary permissions and all. See here you have something called firewall and virtual network. Show firewall settings. I'll click on this.
Purushottam, can you go back one screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, if we click, if we select a new elastic pool, it will connect to elastic pool database or what?
No. It will allow us to create a elastic pool over here. What are the elastic pool we created within the server?
Okay.
If you remember that we can drop down, it gives all the servers on, right? But here
Yeah.
the server is selected. Whatever you create this, that will be created on top of the server, selected server.
Okay.
Yeah. And here no elastic pool. No, is it elastic pool? No, right? And pricing tier, it will show everything. And what I was trying to show, the server, right? Yeah. Let me go to
Firewall security.
yes. Yeah. So this is one of the important one which you need to remember. So usually in the real-time application also, when you try to access the server from the different databases, you'll go for the add client IP. Say suppose you have access on this server, okay, and first time you're accessing that, and you change your location, right, and change your network, your own internet network. So what you'll do, you'll go for the add client IP. When I click on that, so whatever the current IP you have, that will be added over here. See here, I added the client IP here, so that is the reason it was showing this. And the same way here also I can see allow Azure services and resources to access this server. Yes, then only your all other resources like your ADF and all able to access. All right, that you need to understand this. And this is the basic thing. So honestly, I asked this question to many people in the interview. Nobody were there are very less people who were able to answer this question. So add client IP is a basic thing, right, which you need to remember and understand. And here we have server name, elastic pool and all. Yeah, see this activity log is one more important thing. So you can see all the logs which are performed on the particular database, right? So you have many logs, right? So we have update SQL database, the first one. Then say suppose the database is deleted, or you perform some operation, you took someone guy deleted that. So you can see all the things over here. Okay, it's basically a log. Okay, and diagnose and solve problems. If you have any diagnostic things, you can go for that, like backup, restore, and all those things you can see here over here. And yeah, query editor, even you can access the query over here, okay, the database over here, and where you can navigate to this particular database. So it's in preview mode now. Okay, so you can see here you can run, instead of SSMS, you can directly write all your queries here itself. Okay, Power Platform, you have all this in model, so ignore that. And yeah, so we have complete storage, the same thing which you selected while creating the database. So here you can choose here, and you can change this backup and retention policies over here. And here see database utilization, you can see how much DTU has been used, how much data space has used so far. So there was nothing, just we can ignore this. And service types also we can choose and select over here. So the basic connection strings, so if you are programming back, so if you want to use the connection strings for various connectivity methods, you can just copy and paste from over here. And replicas, yeah, you can see the replicas if you have any replica, geo redundancy. And here you can see all the auditing. Yeah, and one more important point will be performance overview. Okay, so if you have like any tuning you need to perform and all, you can see there is no performance data available, please check again, because there is no data, nothing, so it's not giving anything. Yeah, and I wanted to show you this query performance inside. So we'll add some queries, then you can see that. See, suppose in the SQL, how do you check the queries? So you'll go for the which option you will go if you want to see query performance and all?
Profiler.
You will go for the profiler. You'll see that all the yeah, so all the options you'll go for, right? So here say suppose your application is performing very low and you're not sure about what is causing that particular data loading delay in the data loading. So what you can see, directly you can go for here query performance inside, then it lists down all the queries, okay, whatever is taking time, how much time it's taking, you can see everything, CPU, data IO, log IO, duration, how much taking, how much execution count it's taking, everything you can see over here. Okay, it's very simple. So it's very useful when you have a huge data loading taking place in your application, or you have a web application which is consuming some of the queries and all, right? So you can see all those methods over here. Okay, it's very important point regarding with your real-time process, real-time work, and otherwise even in the interview answer. In the query performance set, directly you can see all the queries performance, how much CPU is taking, how much time it's taking, how do you identify. So say suppose if I ask you, how do you identify the query which is taking more time using Azure? Okay, so what do you say? You'll go for you'll select the database, you'll check this query performance site where you can select the things, right? And automatic tuning, okay, which is also one of the important thing. So automated tuning, so here it force plan, you know that, right? Force plan in the sense, you know what is force plan in the general SQL terminology?
No.
So when you have multiple joins, say suppose your query has multiple joins and you want to choose the join the conditions of table joins, okay, in the same order on which you wrote the logic, okay, then you'll use the force plan. When you say force plan, what happens? It will take all the joined conditions tables in the same order on which you took that, okay. And here the options will be, so these options talk about that whether you want to on and off, but the thing which you need to understand is how do you inherit the properties. Say suppose if this is the database you're talking about, right? So say suppose you have the particular force plan is on your server, okay, by default it will be on, so that will be inherited, okay. Suppose the create index is on, then it will be on, but in the create index is off on the inherited server, so we'll say off. And the drop index, so what are the drop index we have? So by default the index will be dropped and create index will be there, right? Automatic tuning option, that will be off on this, okay. Based on this on and off you can choose, then this will be done automatically. Even if you choose here in the query in the automatic tuning, so these options will be inherited from the server, okay, on which this database is created. And this is very important related to exam point of view. Almost in every exam, I mean to say in the certification exam, this will be asked. So what is the on and off options are available when you inherit the performance recommendation, automatic tuning from the server. So the force plan will be on, create index is off, drop index is off, right? So you just try to remember this as well related to exam point of view. Okay, so almost every question, every time you attempt the exam, this will be kind of a default question. Okay, force plan, create index, drop index.
Purushottam, can you tell me again what is force plan?
Say suppose you have a join conditions. Okay, you have multiple joins in your query. Okay, and when you say force plan, so all the joins will be taken one by one in the same order on which you wrote the query. Okay, say suppose you have 5 joins you are using, so that will be taken the force plan. When you say force plan, so the joins will be considered one by one in the same order which you wrote the query. All right.
And if it is in off state, then what happens?
If it is off, it takes randomly based on the, like, say suppose if there are no correlation between the multiple joins, and if you are taking into one table, so it has its own logic in choosing the join conditions tables.
So it is going to generate its own plan.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Okay. And the performance overview also, as I was saying, performance recommendation, it automatically it says that, oh man, this is taking some time, and please add this index. Okay, please remove this index. That also it will give the option. See how much powerful it is. You don't need to worry about anything. So it's with the SaaS power, with the SaaS advantage, it's going to suggest you everything, whatever. All right. So, and one more thing, and metrics and all, these are all same for any resource, as I was saying. So you can see here what are the metrics you have, like CPU percentage, data IO percentage, disk space. So when you are not sure about how your database is performing, you can see all the metrics over here. How many DTUs is using and what time it's using. Say suddenly at 6 p.m. the spike is up. Okay, then what could be the reason? So you can use this metrics and you can find out the reason and you can debug the issues. All right, and yeah, that's about this databases. Oh, sorry, what did I click?
Yeah, Purushottam, where we can do this user and roles here in Azure SQL?
What do you mean by user and roles?
So let's say you have one database on your name, right? You have created. So I want to access that.
Okay.
So how I can access?
So you have access control, right? So you have access control. You can give a role assignment on the particular database. Okay, you can give the role assignment and you can
control.
give
in access control we are going to do this.
Yes. So access control is like common for any resource. You might have see this even in the storage capacity also, right? So if there you can add the resource and all. And this is a server. So earlier we saw the database. Here this is a server. In the server you can see all the data. Say suppose whatever the amount of databases you have, you can see over here. And if the server have the elastic pools, you can see over here. And even you can see the DTU quota, how much DTU quota, say suppose you have this many DTUs and how many has been used, and logs. And even you can see the backup and restore for this particular database. So suppose you have a deleted databases on this, you can see over here, and failover groups, you can ignore that. Okay, auditing and all. So same thing, you can see all the tuning recommendations for in terms of the server, you can see here. Okay. And I was talking about this one, right? If you remember that, what is the tool I was talking about? If you remember that. So if you remember that I was talking about Snowflake, right? Okay, so Snowflake tool, so here I took the recommendation, I did set that properties like indexing and auto tuning, all these things there, right? And here when you go for this when you go for this Snowflake, so Snowflake is completely kind of a SaaS model. So you don't need to worry about any indexes in the Snowflake model. It's relevant to this Azure, but as we're discussing, I'm just saying that. So in the Snowflake, when you're working in the Snowflake, you don't create indexes, you don't delete indexes, you don't need to worry about how the query is performing. Everything will be taken care by the Snowflake itself. It has its own advantages, and you don't need to worry about any performance issues over there. Okay, that is one of the that's how that is the reason the Snowflake is kind of emerging technology nowadays in the data warehouse world. That's how database, and you can create the pool and you can play around. All right, and let's talk about this server name, and let me connect to SSMS.
Snowflake is a, I mean, as per my knowledge, I know Snowflake we will be using in database designing schemas. So Snowflake is now a new technology in Azure.
Okay, you're talking about Snowflake data warehousing model. You're talking about, right? Starflake schema, Snowflake schema. Now,
Yeah.
Snowflake is a new tool which is emerged around a few years back, 3-4 years back. It's a new technology. Snowflake is a new technology, and it's going like crazily into the market. It's capturing the market crazily, the data market. If you see that, you'll find like if you follow the LinkedIn page and all, you'll wonder how it's
seen it somewhere. Yeah.
yeah. So it's capturing the market so fast. So I learned for 3 to 4 months on my own, and even I done with that certification also.
Okay.
Yeah, and like in your Azure certification or LAN certification, I should not talk that word. You don't find any what do you say? You don't find any dumps or any questions anywhere. So you should observe the technology with their so they provide their own content material in their website. So you should go through that each and every topic thoroughly, okay, and you should understand it very well, unlike like mugging up the question. Then only you can attempt that exam. And all exams are 70%, right? But Snowflake has 80%.
Oh.
So first, and the exam cost also almost like 17 to 18,000. So I attempted once, so I got 78%. I failed with the 2%. Unfortunately, all the 17,000 gone. Then next week itself, again I registered, again I attempted and passed with the 85%. It's very tricky exam, and they're very rare to find the people who gets passed in the first attempt.
So can you please share some of the link for Snowflake?
Yeah. So in the important links, there is a document, right, in the notepad. So I will add that in place.
Yeah. Okay.
You can.
So is it that much difficult? You mean to say this?
No, it's simple one, but you should understand all. There are so many things are available within the technology. There are so many features. There are so many options which are available. Unlike SQL, the SQL like you can that, right? How many options are available and all. But in that case of Snowflake, there are tons of options available, tons of features available. So you should understand each and every feature thoroughly. Then only you can pass the exam, because it's 80%. That means almost like you should understand each and every concept of the Snowflake. Then only you can attempt the exam. Otherwise, no. And there's so many features, and also you need to practice them very well. And there also it has a trial period of 1 month. Okay, so you can go with the trial period. You can create the trial period, and you can play around. They give the trial period of 1 month. So using the trial period, you can access the Snowflake, you can create the databases, you can import the data, you can export the data, you can share the data. There's so many options are there, and data sharing is very, very efficient. You'll amazed with the features that is providing. Actually, it's wonderful tool. So this is a PC test TB.
So
Yeah,
Means
go ahead, go ahead.
that Snowflake is working individually with a different technology, or that will be mapped with some of the.
It's a database, so you can choose any technology to load the data again into that. Basically, it's a database. So usually people use Python, people use some what is the DBT tool. There is something called DBT tool. They will use that to load the data over there. I have two tables. Okay, I have two tables. These two, I'll upload this as well. So what I want to do is I want to load the data into these two tables using ADF now. Okay, because we covered the SQL. So let's jump into ADF and try to see how do we access this database. We'll start this and I'll show you that. Let me check that. You're able to see SSMS, right? Yeah. Are you able to see SSMS? Are able to
Yes,
see?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So I can. Yeah, I could connect to the server. If you see that, I could connect to the server because my IP is added. If my IP is not added, you may not be able to connect to this. All right. And I created this two tables. One is product and product category. Okay. And I have these two tables, two files which I want to load over into this. So let me go over here. I already have some storage account. Oh, did I delete the storage account? My bad. One second. Let me do this ADLS. Okay, when I choose this enable hierarchy namespace, it will become data lake. So we'll have one session explicitly for data lake and advantages. Okay, so we gave a high level introduction how the data gets stored and hierarchical namespace, but there's so many things to learn within the data lake as well. We'll see that. And tomorrow what we'll do is we will load the data from SQL to sorry, the files to SQL. Also, we will see how do we load the data in the how do we use the configuration table. Okay, so we'll see like two tables are there. These two tables I will create. Okay, and two files we have, and I will manage my configuration table in such a way that it handles the data loading from one stage to another stage. So if you remember that I was talking about, we have different zones, like we usually manage different zones, right? Like a landing zone and landing zone, RAS zone, transformation zone, right? So we'll take two things. One is we'll take the two separate accounts or two separate containers. So we'll load the data from one container to another container. Then from the container, we'll load into the final database. Okay, so we'll create the configuration table accordingly, and we'll try to see how do we what do you say, how do you make this all the data loading dynamically, including the table names, the database names, table names, schema names, even the file names, storage account, how do we manage the file names, and even the what do you say, this folder names, how do you make all this dynamically, how do we do in the real time. So we'll take simple example and we'll go over that. Okay, And once you do that, then we'll discuss around 10 to 15 questions, and I'll try to get the answers from you. Okay. So those are the questions which are very important from the Azure understanding perspective, even in the what do you say, in the even in the real time as well, in the interview point of view. I'm going to say. So how do we choose that? Which technology you choose when? That also you need to understand. So here as I choose ADLS, it's giving the option for direct, right? So I have it something called a product. I'll put some files over here. I uploaded it outside. That's fine. I'll do that. Now here. So suppose I have a pipeline. I'll give just introduction and wrap it up. So here we have PL underscore TP load. All right. So we have a copy data. In the copy data sync, I want to load the data into the database. So I'll say new, and so what do you have? You have Azure SQL database. Here you can see so many options are there. As you see, MySQL, Postgres, SQL Server, SQL API, managed instance. So many options are available. I'll use Azure SQL database. So I don't have any linked service.
So link service is mandatory, right? So
Yeah,
without
of
link
course, right? Without
service,
link service,
we can't
yes, yes,
load the data.
of
Right?
course, yes. So if you see here, whatever the servers we have, it will give all the servers.
So one more question. So
Mhm,
whenever we are creating any SQL database,
mhm,
okay,
mhm.
or database storage. So
Okay.
in normal case, there are four by default database are created. That is master, MSDB, TempDB, like this.
Okay.
So in Azure itself also created the same, or they are just
They're common, right? They're
more?
common for any this one.
Yeah, common for yeah.
Yeah.
But in
So
whenever we are creating in Azure
yeah, it will
any
have
data store,
it will have the master databases and all. It will have.
I
And
think it is not having that model and MSDB.
no, you'll have only master database.
Yeah.
You have a master database. And one more thing is, so always, what is the advantage of cloud Azure SQL? So always it will have what, the latest version of software, SQL Server. So here in this case of SQL Server, it will have the latest version, whatever you choose in the this, that you need to understand. So it's a simple interview question. What is the version that will be using in the Azure SQL they will ask? So it's the latest version.
So Azure is automatically picked up, right? We are not
Yes, yes. No,
selecting
no,
the version.
yeah, yeah, we don't need to do that. It will be updated automatically.
Yeah,
See,
and in
yeah.
some scenario, suppose in some scenario, we required the old version. So
No, it's
is
not.
there any option to choose the older version?
No, no. Then you should use the virtual machine. Then on top of it, you need to install and you should use that. But it's not a cloud, right? It's a infrastructure as a service. You don't have option to explicitly select your own version.
Okay.
See, it's all about data modernization, right? There is no meaning if you are trying to use again the old version. It's all about the data modernization, right? So here we'll see sync. I selected a SQL one, and here I can use a stored procedure if I want to use. Okay, and in the this is a sync data set. Open it. See here you can select, you can check the all the file names whatever you selected previously, the schema. Okay, the schema of the data table which you chose, and the parameters if you want to use. And the same way in the SQL in the storage account you were making this dynamic, right, by using the parameters. The same way here also you can use the same thing. Say suppose I can use a parameter for table. I am saying, right, you can make the parameter dynamically, the table name dynamically. So what I'll use, I'll say table, and what I'll do, I'll select edit. So when you select edit, what happens, it distinguishes that schema and the table name. So even the schema also you can make dynamic, even the table also you can make dynamic. I'll say table. So what happens, the table will be selected. If you do that, so what happens here, the table will be, option will be come over here. So whatever the properties, whatever the parameters I'm using within the data set, that will be displayed over here, right? Like if you remember that in the storage account, the same way here also it will happen. Then you can dynamically manage this. And say suppose if you want to have stored procedure, if you want to use some stored procedure, you can do that. And if you want to apply some parameters, you can do that. And the pre-copy script, like if the table is a table option, if the table is not created, then you can say auto create the table. And pre-copy script in the sense, like before loading the data you want to truncate the table, or you want to do some other update operations. Otherwise you want to some drop constraints, like pre-copy is like in exercise you do that, right? Pre and post, that you can achieve over here. Okay, batch size and all, how much batch you want to do, how many transactions you want to perform, all this you can specify here. Got it? And tomorrow what we'll do, we will try to do all this using a configuration table. We will do a two-phase data loading. Okay, so then we will try to go with the question and answers. Any doubts so far?